Joining us via video Skype is former head of the Trump campaign and Trump confidant for 43 years, Roger Stone. And Roger has got a new article going up on Infowars.com as we speak. This is exclusive info on not the hype, but what really happened behind the scenes with Psycho Joe and, of course, the daughter of one of the most famous war criminals ever, Mika Brzezinski. Her late father, of course, making the jump into hell or wherever he went. So it's really behind the scenes. I talked to a rock star friend. He said he's been on the Morning Joe before for charities and stuff, and that she won't talk to anyone and treats her crew like crap. Joe's nice on the surface, but this is a monstrous woman. So the truth behind that and the inside intrigue, and then we've got news on North Korea. We've got news on the whole Russiagate thing falling apart, 17 agencies never agreeing that Russia was even involved, the whole house of cards coming down. So what comes next? Roger Stone of StoneColdTruth.com. Thanks for joining us.
Alex, even though we went through the holidays, so very much has happened politically in just the last few days, and I think it's extraordinarily significant. Mika, of course, and Joe spent an enormous amount of time brown-nosing Donald Trump, both before, during, and after his campaign for president, during certainly the time of his being president-elect. But, they had then turned on him like a pack of vicious dogs, calling him a goon, a thug, a dictator, mentally deficient, crazy, insane, Alzheimer's.
By the way, you broke that months ago on the street in Austin. People can pull it up. Next attack will be that he has Alzheimer's or is insane. No one else was saying that. How did you get that intel?
Look, it is kind of something that I will have to attribute to sources. Let me not get distracted. Mika now claims that it was she who recommended to Ivanka Trump the hiring of Dina Habib Powell. For those who have followed this on InfoWars, where I had an extensive piece on Ms. Dina Habib Powell, this woman is a Soros infiltrator in the White House of Donald J. Trump. She is an unabashed neocon, best friends with Huma Abedin, best friends with Valerie Jarrett, best friends with Akandi Rice. She is a Bush alum. She is Council on Foreign Relations, and she is currently single. The Powell, incredibly, is Richard Powell. Now, let's follow that, if we may. Richard Powell is the chairman of Teneo. Teneo is the front, the consulting company, multi-billion-dollar consulting company, put together so Bill Clinton can loot during the period of his former presidency. Powell, therefore, works for the Clintons. And in essence, Teneo is their holding company. Who else is on this payroll? Well, Alex, it turns out that Huma Abedin, best friend of Dina Powell, she's getting a check while she's on the State Department and the Clinton campaign, Clinton Library, or I should say Foundation, payrolls, a financial triple dip for which she actually has a waiver from the federal government under Obama that she can do. Talk about fixing at the highest levels. This is also where Ed Rollins, putatively a Republican, but one of Donald Trump's harshest critics in the Republican Party.
So here's the bottom line. She is meeting in the Hamptons. We talked about this yesterday. We both worked a lot yesterday just because, that's a pleasure to work for the Republican freedom and defeat these people, obviously, even on the holiday. She is a Soros operative in every sense of the word inside the White House. and the president needs to know this, and we need to politically neutralize her. So when is your article coming to InfoWars?
Well, let me give you the other moving parts here. Now that Mika has come forward to say that she went to Ivanka to place Powell, and Powell was hired, and then quickly elevated from the job she was hired from, which was relatively short, to being the number 2 person in the NSA, basically the right-hand woman of General McMaster, who sadly is turning out to be more in their camp than ours. Amazing. Secondarily, it means that Powell lied, because publicly she has always claimed that the administration recruited her, that Ivanka, out of the blue, called her and recruited her for this job. We now know that Mika fixed it. Sean Hannity made this charge in public, put it up on a tweet, correctly said, if this is true, Powell should be fired for lying. And then, out of the blue, Anthony Scaramucci, a good man, comes to her defense and puts up a tweet that says, no, Dina is a good conservative, the furthest thing from the truth. And then the New York Post and the Daily and the other social media pick up that Dina is hobnobbing in the Hamptons with none other than the big man, the big enchilada of anti-democracy forces around the planet, George Soros, only last weekend. What is this woman doing in the Trump White House?
So let's be clear. She's got this Islamic last name. She's hooked in with the globalists. She's a right-hand person of Soros. She's hooked in with McMaster, the war hawk. And then she's in the Hamptons hanging out with Soros. That shows up in the local papers. This is absolutely crazy. Why the Trump State Department still loves George Soros. Even the New York Post understands this. This is sensational. Tell us about this lady's pedigree.
Well, first of all, I think it speaks, Alex, you're absolutely right, to the larger issue of what is happening at state under Tillotson and what they're trying to do out of the NSA to grab foreign policy and take it back to the path of neocon war. We know that McMaster, probably backed by the defense secretary, backed 150,000 troops on the ground in Syria right after the limited strike, and the president wisely, one of the best decisions he's made, said, no, that's not what we're doing. So we know that there's this clique, and I think they are, as I reported here on InfoWars, in complete and total control of our U.S. embassies in Romania and Hungary.
We're going to go to break and come back with more of this. We're going to go to break and come back. We're going to go to break and come back more of this. But Trump's having trouble digging them out because they're coming back in through his administration at the top and the bottom. A total George Soros arrogant infiltration. So how does Trump remove these cancers from the State Department? And is the bottom line Rex Tillerson is a double agent from the beginning? We'll be back. I'm Alex Jones.
Joining us now is Mark Dice. I'm sure you know all about him by now. Just reached over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. New videos every day. He's also an author. His latest book is The Bilderberg Group, Facts and Fiction.
I don't know how much longer they can cling on to this conspiracy theory about Russia. I mean, they might drag it on another few months. It's been 7 months now since the election, and every day it's still the #1 topic. And James Comey's hearing yesterday really was one of the bigger backfires in the establishment's face, because he admitted that President Trump, quote, just hoped that he could drop the investigation.
You don't know of anyone that's ever been charged for hoping something. Is that a fair statement?
I don't, as I sit here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You can hope horrible things onto someone. That's not a threat. That's not a direction.
I took it as a direction. I mean, this is the President of the United States, with me alone, saying, I hope this. I took it as, this is what he wants me to do. Now, I didn't obey that, but that's the way I took it.
You may have taken it as a direction, but that's not what he said.
Correct.
It's just insane. Even Chris Matthews has admitted that the whole Russia collusion conspiracy theory has come apart.
The assumption of the critics of the president, of his pursuers, you might say, is that somewhere along the line in the last year, the president had something to do with colluding with the Russians, something to do with the helping hand, encouraging them, feeding their desires. desire to affect the election in some way. Some role they played, some conversation he had with Michael Flynn or Paul Manafort or somewhere. And yet what came apart this morning was that theory.
Let's not forget during some of his previous testimony and another time, several months ago, he said that people will occasionally in the Justice Department say that, well, we don't think there's a crime here, or, they'll give, quote, their opinions to us, but never a directive to actually close a case. And some of his language was so bizarre. Captain Courageous, oh Lordy. I mean, golly gee, Mr. Comey, I just don't see a case here. The guy, he needs to go away, crawl back into the hole that he came out of. His bags under his eyes so big, I could put my groceries in them. And if we're going to go off of the intent being one of the primary reasons for indicting someone, President Trump did not intend that hoping was a direct order. And if he wasn't spelling it out in his words, then what was he doing? Sending him, signals via ESP, or spelling it out in barbecue sauce on his plate or in carrot sticks?
But it's so ridiculous. It's like if you're the president of the United States and you see this waste of time, waste of money, waste of resources, waste of energy, waste of everything, of course you want it stopped. But he's smart enough to know that Comey is a snake, so he was like, well, I hope you end this. He didn't. He said, okay, you're fired.
Roger Stone's our guest. Coming up in the next hour, we're into the whole Russia narrative completely collapsing. And again, I don't do like MSM does, where they just say what they want to believe and act like it becomes true. It's totally collapsed. The 17 agencies didn't say the Russians meddled. That was a hoax. The whole thing's derailed. It's all falling apart. Now Podesta's saying the conspiracy theory that he's involved with the Russians came from InfoWars. They've gone into total panic mode. But getting back with Roger Stone to the issue of Ms. Powell, there in the State Department with Rex Tillerson. We can put the news article up. It's in multiple New York newspapers that we've got this lady at Soros parties with Jared and Ivanka as well. Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, Kellyanne Conway spotted at Washington Post editor's Hampton's party with George Soros and all these people. Now, I understand at that level of New York, you're going to cross paths. But then we're seeing the action of not removing Soros people, in fact, putting them in, as Roger Stone was just saying. This is just crazy. I mean, George Soros is trying to openly destroy Trump. How is this happening, Roger Stone?
Extraordinary question, Alex. I mean, first of all, has been reported this week, the U.S. State Department continues to fund, with our tax dollars, the ongoing efforts of George Soros to destabilize Donald Trump and his administration, democracy in general, to crush free expression, using Alinsky thug tactics, shady financing, mob rule, instigation of violence. This man is a criminal. He is attempting to overturn the legitimately elected government of Romania. He's attempting to overturn the legitimately, democratically U.S.-recognized government of Hungary. He's an international criminal. He is exporting violence as a political tool.
The last James Bond character was admittedly based on him, the last supervillain.
Yeah, I don't know if he really sits around with a white cat and just strokes it, or whether that part is made up, but look, this guy beat his girlfriend in New York City in an altercation. Any other citizen, any other man who did that would have been arrested and prosecuted. Poof, gone. He has paid people to advocate the assassination of Donald Trump. Felony, federal crime. On that charge alone, he could be charged.
Let me ask you this, then, shifting gears quickly. You've been called a Russian agent, no evidence. It's completely collapsed. I mean, but still, they just keep pushing the corpse. But from polls I see, no one's buying it. How long will the Russian dead horse keep getting beaten?
Well, what's happened now, I am told, is that the NSA and others in the deep state have a new focus on, since they can find nothing on the president, there's a new focus on the Trump children. Donnie Jr., who I think very highly of, who's a real fighter and a real believer in the cause.
And the word is he's about the best thing we've got other than Pop.
He's a great guy, and he's a great advocate for his father and his father's policies. Eric, who I think is also very effective, and of course I have long affection for Ivanka, despite the fact that I think socially, unfortunately, perhaps her thinking is shaped by some on the left, in all honesty, and I have been critics of both Jared and Ivanka on occasion. But Alex, I think they think they're giving the president good advice.
I agree. Stay there. Back at 70. Do 5 more minutes with us. I know you got to go. Second hour's coming up. Please spread the word, listeners. You're the reason we're growing. If we don't grow, though, we're going to shrink and be destroyed. We need your help.
President Trump's tweets have sent the Democrats into a tizzy again. After President Trump ripped Psycho Joe and No IQ Mika last week, Trump got back on Twitter yesterday and posted a short video of himself beating up another man depicted as a CNN logo, a total classic. But the Democrats didn't appreciate Trump's animosity towards the fake news network CNN and are now drumming up the bill for impeachment based on the 25th Amendment, citing grounds that the president is mentally unfit to serve. Now, this would require a medical examination, which may come back to bite the Democrats that are calling for it. You see, given a fair examination of the president's health, Trump will pass with flying colors. But imagine if the tables were turned and Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Maxine Waters, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders were asked to pass the same test, given the importance of their jobs. I wonder if they would still be pushing this bill. Something tells me they wouldn't be. For Infowars.com, this is Owen Schroyer.
Leading a frontal assault on the lies of the New World Order, it's Alex Jones. From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
You know, something we don't do as libertarians, constitutionalists, free market, Western civilization type guys is have victory laps. But I can't even keep track of all the CNN, ABC, NBC, AP, New York Times, Washington Post retractions because they're getting sued left and right, where they just put out whole cloth made up garbage. I mean, when they say they have proof that not only am I a Russian agent, I direct the Russians. I mean, that is just totally ridiculous. Well, now it's all coming out, and we've got a guest coming up who was the journalist first really exposing it from Consortium News and Zero Hedge, that they've known from the beginning 17 agencies didn't unanimously say this. They pushed this lie. That's crumbled now. I mean, where does MSM go now that they are just the most discredited, hated bullies on earth, Roger Stone?
Well, as I said, Alex, I hear there's a new targeting of the Trump children to see if there is some tangible Russian connection there, which I think is relatively ludicrous. I mean, all three of them are international business people. I'm sure they have met people from Russia. That proves nothing whatsoever. But that's how desperate I think that they are. I also think that just to go back to an earlier point about Joe and Mika, I can't overemphasize enough the fact that the animus of Joe Scarborough, who's not, I think, a mentally balanced guy, is one of sheer jealousy. Joe Scarborough thinks he should be president. Joe Scarborough aspired to the 2016 Republican nomination. After Trump was nominated, Joe decided that the very best candidate for vice president was Joe Scarborough. And when I said this, some fake news outlets attacked me saying that, Stone had no proof. Then Congressman Matt Gaetz, one of the really impressive, hard-charging young conservatives in the House of Representatives from Florida, a longtime protege of Joe Scarborough, put up a post saying, I love Joe Scarborough, but in every conversation I had with him every political conversation I had with him ended with him being president in 2016. So I think this proves my point. He is riven by jealousy and rage. I don't think Joe's life is a bowl of peaches, in the sense that he evidently has quite a wild lifestyle, spends an enormous amount of his cash, and lives the beautiful people jet set lifestyle.
Well, is it the word that he's with her because she's got a lot of money that Daddy got from war criming?
Remember, during the Carter administration, Hamilton Jordan, the White House chief of staff, referred to Zbigniew Brzezinski, Mika's father, who was Clinton's national security advisor, as Woody Woodpecker, which I thought was like the perfect nickname if you saw his photo. He is a neocon veteran. Again, notice he's serving a Democrat, but they insert a hardline neocon as their a warmonger as their secretary.
And he's the founder of the Trilateral Commission, also Jimmy Carter's national security advisor.
Exactly. A true heavyweight of the deep state, and who has done yeoman service in the cause of endless war, erosion of our civil liberties, squandering our national treasury, and the rest.
So does Mika know that she's a sugar mama for Psycho Joe?
Well, look, who knows? I am not going to criticize the fact that they may be, as they say in Washington, knocking boots, and I guess they're now engaged. I've always thought that she was an attractive woman. I've never been on the air with either one of them that I...
Sure. I'm not knocking her. I mean, we first caught the video that we get on a hotel, together in an elevator all over each other. We first said they must be together, and folks thought it was crazy. All I know is that she's anti-Trump, anti-American. She needs to be exposed. Roger Stone, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back.
The New York Times ran the headline, Central Americans scared of what's happening in U.S. staying put. This has been a popular talking point of the left, aimed at demonizing President Trump's strong border policy. But think about the paradigm here, implying that somehow it is a bad thing that people aren't rushing to our country in droves because it's not easy to get in and reside here illegally anymore. The same people implying this also stress the hardship of poor people, specifically citing healthcare. Well, then how is more people here that are in need going to help that problem? So the Democrats complain all day about how we don't have enough welfare for Americans, yet they want to take more people in here that need welfare. But really all President Trump is doing is enforcing border security and law. But since when is it just free for anyone to come here? Since when is America supposed to have open doors for anyone? I don't see anyone from North America rushing to get into Central America. You know why? Because you couldn't, and it's better here. This all equates to one thing. More Democrats loot. New from Emmerich's Essentials. Fragrance-free natural deodorant for your body care needs. Playing basketball in the dry summer heat really makes me sweat. To maintain my game, I need all the confidence I can get. That's why I use Emmerich's Essentials Natural Deodorant. Made with organic ingredients, this deodorant combines mineral crystals with natural botanicals to ionize odor, keeping me fresh throughout the day. While shooting hoops, the last thing I want is sweaty armpits making my hands slippery and the ball wet. That's why I recommend Emmerich's Essentials Fragrance-Free Deodorant. Even though it's unscented, it's effective at combating strong body odor, and I don't have to worry about any unwanted allergic reactions to my sensitive skin. Whether you're a guy or gal, the last thing you want to be worried about is your deodorant. No petroleum-based ingredients, 100% natural and cruelty-free. Stay in the game with Emmerich's Essentials Fragrance-Free Natural Deodorant. Available at InfoWarsStore.com.
Alex Jones here to tell you about how you can help spread liberty worldwide while also enjoying what I have found to be the best tasting 100% organic coffee on the planet. For more than a decade, my favorite coffee has come from the high mountains of southern Mexico, where the Chiapas farmers grow their unique shade-grown Arabica beans. We have now managed to secure these sought-after beans in a highly customized blend. Discover and try a bag of the Patriot Blend 100% organic coffee at InfoWarsLife.com. This coffee gives you a long, smooth pick-me-up for hours without the headaches and heartburn that so many other coffees give me personally. Hands down, this is my favorite coffee, and it's taken us years to secure connections directly to the Chiapas Mexican farmers. Drop by the site today, order a bag or two, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Available in original or with our immune support infusion blend. You will be supporting a free press, all the while enjoying a truly great tasting cup of my favorite coffee. Available at InfoWarsLife.com. Truly great tasting cup of my favorite coffee. Available at InfoWarsLife.com.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance. You're listening to Alex Jones.
Former journalist with the Associated Press, Newsweek, PBS Frontline, one of the best documentary outfits out there, I'd say from a true classical liberal perspective, and Bloomberg News. And he has broken a lot of big national stories, coverage of the CIA, Nicaraguan Contra operation, and was also a Pulitzer Prize finalist. I'm not going to go over his whole bio, kind of like Cy Hirsch or somebody would take an hour. But he is the founder and editor of ConsortiumNews.com. Since 95, his background in the mainstream news media has worked, again, at the Associated Press and many other publications and television networks, has really given him a great background. I'm not going to get into all of his awards. He's gotten some of the top awards in the country, ConsortiumNews.com. The real award he's gotten is breaking so much news in the last 6 months. He's the first person to start documenting that it wasn't 17 unanimous intelligence agencies, and then Breitbart picked it up. The president and others retweeted it, and finally it broke through the Berlin Wall of establishment media and got out there, thanks to InfoWars, thanks to you spreading the links, thanks to Zero Hedge carrying a lot of his articles. Really, really powerful information. So ConsortiumNews.com founder and editor joins us, Robert Perry, because I know the listeners, the regular listeners go, we know the New York Times is lying. We know the Washington Post got part of the $600 million through Bezos and the CIA. They admit they're lying. They admit they hate Trump. But we need to look at the anatomy of how they run a deception, how the rest of the media gets together and then amplifies it. And then when the New York Times is forced last week to quietly retract, even that's a lie. And then still the media is running with the 17 unanimous agencies. And the total proof that Americans didn't vote? No, no, no. You wanted Hillary. It was the Ruskies. So this isn't even about Trump. This is about the integrity of our country and our system, and deep state claiming it's protecting us from the Russians when they're the ones trying to organize through Atlantic Monthly and others the removal of Trump and the suspension of the last election, and then Homeland Security federalizing the election will be like Venezuela, folks, a permanent one-party state. If the Republicans tried this, I would oppose it. So quite a time to be alive. Robert Perry, again, has written a bunch of articles breaking all of this down. New York Times finally retracts Russiagate canard. There's another one. New York Times forced to retract longstanding 17 intel agencies lie about Russia. And then he goes back really hammering that. So it's almost the anatomy of patient zero for the truth. You know, how do you research this stuff? How do you develop it? And then how do you patiently hammer away until the dam of lies collapses? Robert Perry, thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you.
Well, where to start with this latest hoax that's imploded?
Well, as you know, from going back to last fall during the campaign, it became almost a rote, repeated, endlessly presented certainty that all 17 U.S. intelligence agencies had concurred in the point that the Russians had hacked into the election and tried to help Donald Trump win the presidency. Having covered the intelligence community really going back to the 1980s, that never sounded right to me because there was no national intelligence estimate. That's the so-called NIEs. That's where you get the 17 intelligence agencies coming together, offering their consensus view with dissents about some important topic. For instance, does Iraq have WMD? Which, of course, ended up being one that where the NIE that was released to the public had been sanitized by the Bush administration to remove some of the dissents, suggesting that perhaps the Iraqis did not have WMD. But that's the way it's usually done. There was no indication that there was an NIE on the issue of Russia. It turns out there really wasn't even a thorough analysis. It was something that James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, stated, and he said, on behalf of the intelligence community. And since there are 17 agencies in the community, that became sort of all 17 agreed, but that wasn't the case. But it became something that was repeated over and over again. We at consortiumnews.com, we tried to point out that this wasn't necessarily the case, that from what we were getting from inside the community was that there was not this consensus. But that's how everyone reported it. Finally, in May, Clapper testifying before the Congress, and then former CIA Director Brennan confirmed that there had not been a 17 agency analysis, that there had been an analysis done by people from 3 of the agencies that were handpicked by Clapper and the other appointees from President Obama. And they produced something on January 6th that was a report which stated that it was based on FBI, CIA, and NSA analysts, not all 17. So it became obvious even publicly, both in January and then again in May, that this was a false claim. But it was continued to be repeated over and over again by the major news organizations. Finally, the New York Times, when this came out again in one of their stories, agreed to retract it and ran a correction saying that there was no 17 agency analysis.
Wow, and it just shows an arrogance that's like North Korean or Venezuelan in its authoritarianism, where they just keep hammering and hammering and hammering. Day one, I mean, as you said, yourself, others approached these agencies. Congress approached them. There wasn't a consensus. They all said different things. And then it turns out the CIA report had stuff in it from the PP-Gate, dossier that they'd admit now is Democratic Party run. And it has stuff in there like, 2 years ago, there was an RT report that was critical of Hillary. And that's hacking our election. So even the term hacking, there was never a physical, digital getting into election systems. They've all admitted that under testimony now. But still the term hack, when it would be meddling or it would be interference or it would be just normal propaganda that any major power engages in. But it just seems amazing, not just the 17 agency hoax, but the whole hacking hoax itself.
Right. I've talked to a number of people from the intelligence community who are experts in this field, who say that if there had been an actual hack, that should have been something that the NSA would have known as a matter of fact, not as something as a so-called assessment where they're piecing things together. There was also the problem that the FBI never seized the DNC computers. The normal process would be, if you took something seriously like this, would be for the FBI to do its own forensics on the computers to see what happened. The FBI has now acknowledged that it relied on a private group called CrowdStrike to handle the forensics for them. So this is very abnormal, especially when you consider how important this issue has become. Now, it may well be that the Russians, as the United States does, as other intelligence agencies do, try to get into the emails and other information data of rival countries, even friendly countries. So it's not unusual for the Russians or the Americans or the British or Israelis or whoever to try to be penetrating into the sensitive emails of people involved in... Well,
that was my next point. I mean, I think the plan was by the neocons, the rhinos, and the Democratic leadership trying to stop a populist movement, knowing that every major government, Chinese, Russia, you name it, they're all trying to penetrate each other. That's going on all the time. We have the EU, the Pope, the Saudi Arabians, Hollywood, MSM, all the main media against Trump. For Hillary, we have the WikiLeaks proving it, the rigging the debates, Hillary basically running the major publications, the Democrats, Podesta, literally working like the editor of over 100 publications. I don't know how he did it. But there they are in the WikiLeaks, so they got embarrassed. They got defeated. But then obviously they know if they start a big enough investigation, they've got to find something where the Russians tried to penetrate something, and it changes the subject from Hillary's server and the rest of it. So speak to that, please, sir. Again, the founder and head of Consortium News, Robert Perry. But expanding, then what does it mean a few weeks ago when Jay Johnson, the former head of Homeland Security, is forced to admit we tried to get in their servers because we were concerned about stuff like this, and trying to find out who is giving info to WikiLeaks, whether it be Russia or not. We now know probably insiders in the DNC, and they said, no, you can't get in. So why wouldn't Hillary, with a friendly DOJ and a friendly FBI and a friendly president, not want them in the computers?
Well, you would think that if this was a serious investigation, and it obviously has taken on very serious ramifications, we're talking in some cases about going to war with Russia, and people may have forgotten, but they have a lot of nuclear weapons, as does the United States. So when people start talking in terms of this being an assault on our democracy and an act of war and so forth, they've escalated. The American side has escalated this to an extremely dangerous point. And you would expect, therefore, that the U.S. Law enforcement and intelligence agencies would treat this with that degree of seriousness. And instead, we've seen a rather odd approach, which is more driven, it seems, by making propaganda points than by actually establishing what's fact and what's not fact. And we still have, of course, the mainstream media does not want to give up on that 17 intelligence agency canard. The New York Times has now retracted it, but if you read what they write now, they say the U.S. intelligence community unanimously agreed. So they're still suggesting that all 17 agencies are in agreement, even though we now know they weren't.
Yeah, they got 3 political hacks to just get together and write a letter and claim that. Just like I'm sure you saw the CIA report on Russian meddling, and it was all just public statements by Russian officials on TV over the years. Maybe a dozen or so times they criticized Hillary. It was crazy.
Well, I did read that report on January 6th, and what was remarkable, you sort of referenced it, there was an addendum from 4 years earlier, really, based on RT's coverage of the 2012 election. And one of the complaints was that RT had allowed third-party candidates who had been excluded from...
Stay there. Let's come right back to that. This is key.
It's a no...
For more than 6,000 years of recorded human history, historians, chroniclers of their time, have all agreed on one great thing. And it's that there are critical times in history where more happens in just a few years to change the future destiny of humanity's trajectory that happened in the previous 100. And with all of the advanced technology, with all of the incredible innovations that limited free market civilization has developed, we're seeing an acceleration of that great turning. We are approaching a mass jump point, tipping point, decision point that our species has never even imagined. Ladies and gentlemen, the equations that gave us atomic weapons and nuclear power were developed by Max Planck in 1900. That vision was then manifest in 1945 when 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. That's 1900 quantum mechanics in the human mind. Theoretical, then put into action. Today, the elites of the globe have been in consensus, from China to Europe to the United States, that they were going to hoard all the advanced technologies and keep them back from the American people and the people of the world. But President Trump, in his inaugural speech, foreshadowed the fact that we are about to discover the secrets of the universe together. And that's because many of the secrets have already been discovered. And many others have been discovered and suppressed. And that simple, basic fact is why the globalists hate Trump. It's why they hate me. It's why they hate you. Because you innately have the spark of the universe in you. As Mahatma Gandhi said, each of us has the sea of the universe within our heart, within our soul. To celebrate our comeback, to celebrate the fact that our republic is coming back from the dead, I'm going to extend the 4th of July specials throughout the month of July. Now, to be clear, the free shipping will continue. A lot of these products like X2, Super Male, Lung Cleanse, Selenium, and others are very close to selling out. But when those sell out, I will continue to discount all the other major nutraceuticals and products between 20 and 30%. In fact, some of the discounts are as high as 40% on some of the Emirates Essentials, so we're going to continue those as well. Until they sell out, while supplies last, the lowest discounts are 10%. The highest discounts are 40% to celebrate the victories we've had against the globalist. That's InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139. Undoubtedly, this is going to be the most intense, long-lasting sale in the history of InfoWars, because right now, the quickening, the acceleration of awakening, the spiritual unlocking is white hot. And I am just honored to be here with you all together. Because as one caller said, we're not just the tip of the spear. This audience of patriots of every race, color, and creed who bleed red blood and want to be free are the sword of truth. And I am humbled to be associated with you all.
Riders on the storm, riders on the storm, into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown.
Well, I followed the work, and so did my producer, Nico Acosta of Robert Perry of ConsortiumNews.com, and it's so exciting to see seasoned, award-winning journalists from the Associated Press, PBS Frontline, Newsweek, you name it, Bloomberg News, to go start their own operations and see them have millions of readers. That is, in fact, I should have this gentleman back for a full hour to talk about the state of the media, to look at what they do, to look at how they spin, the way MSM lies and says that I said there's Mars colonies with kids on it, never said that. I mean, they are so desperate to discredit us, it seems like they've only tripled down. So he was getting into the CIA report that we can put on screen now for folks, where they're talking about letting private contractors be involved in elections in 2012. He was segueing into something. So go ahead, Robert.
Well, there was this report on January 6th that was put out by the DNI, by Clapper, reflecting the views. And Clapper's now acknowledged that these analysts were handpicked. They handpicked the analysts at CIA, NSA, and FBI to do this review of what the evidence
just like the WMDs in 2003, just as you mentioned.
Well, there's been a history going back really to the Reagan years and perhaps even earlier of selecting your analyst who will give you the result you want. This is something that William Casey and Robert Gates, when they were running the agency back in the 1980s, began doing. And so we started getting these more politicized intelligence reports. And this one fits that bill. But I was criticizing the lack of evidence that was being presented on this very important topic of whether the Russians did indeed somehow hack into the U.S. election some way. No evidence was being presented, but I was assured that on January 6th, I'd get what I wanted. So when I read the report, again, there's no evidence in it. It's an assessment which they describe as something where they put two and two together and come up with an answer.
Sure.
And then they added on this section at the end, which was an attack on RT, the Russian network.
Sure, their big proof was RT talked bad about us. That's a hack.
Well, it was also that RT had put on a debate allowing third-party American candidates to express their views to the public.
How evil.
Because they'd been excluded from the 2012 presidential debates. And that was presented as an assault on American democracy. And you sort of wonder, what kind of democracy are they talking about here? I mean, that only the two parties can have their views expressed, and the American people hear from other people.
Sure, and so an English-speaking Russian network with low viewership dares to show third parties that they've choked out We ought to give the Russians an award for that.
Right, and they also mentioned that RT had covered the Occupy Wall Street demonstrations, but of course everybody covered the Occupy Wall Street demonstrations, and it certainly was a valid story. So there was this effort to stretch the evidence, and there was also a failure in that report to look at other sides of the question. For instance, they cite how President Putin has had hard feelings toward Hillary Clinton. And that was the so-called motive. But it's also true that Putin would have been afraid that if Hillary Clinton had gotten elected and he had tried to sabotage her, that might actually cause real problems with his relationship with the United States. So instead of presenting both sides of the story, this report was extremely one-sided. It was trying to make a case, but it really wasn't what they were sort of pitching it as, which as at least the mainstream media, which was that all 17 agencies agreed. There was no such consensus.
Sure, so let me ask you this then, and if you can, maybe do 5 more minutes the next segment, because I have a few other questions. If you have to go, it's fine, I understand. But where do they go from here? I mean, they're so discredited. They've got all these former establishment journalists that have ethics like you that are just everywhere. Cheryl Atkinson, I mean, the list, there's thousands of them, just destroying them. Mainly what I do is just report on what journalists like you are covering. Then they never mention your name or somebody else's name, or when Cy Hirsch comes on and says something, they say, Jones just made this up, or Jones made that up. But then when it comes true, my credit goes up and up because they've kind of used me as the fake news term, but then I'm not fake news, and so it blows up in their face.
Well, at Consortium News, since we started in 1995, we tried to do very serious journalism. And I'm very much an opponent of conspiracy theories. I think fake news, when it does happen, whoever's doing it should be heartily condemned. But that doesn't mean that everything you read in the New York Times is true either. A lot of that has turned out to be false. And one has to be careful. One has to also bring one's own judgment to play. And I think mainstream journalists have gotten very arrogant about how they can dictate what's true or not. We've seen even something like PolitiFact, which had declared the 17-agency canard to be true, still does not want to retract it.
Robert Perry, do 5 more minutes with me after this quick break, because I want to ask you then, as a journalist, where you see this going and what's going to happen to people like PolitiFact as they double down on the arrogance and then double down again and again, because that's what I'm seeing, is the media kind of team up to intensify lying to try to resuscitate themselves. We'll be back.
On the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
It's Paul Joseph Watson, and the T-shirt has finally arrived. Nothing triggers safe space snowflakes more than this slogan and my face. It is the new T-shirt from InfoWarsStore.com. Conservatism is the new counterculture. You've seen how much this triggers the safe space snowflakes. The left controls culture. They control arts. They control entertainment. They have the complete monopoly on culture, which is why conservatism is the new counterculture. We are striking back in the culture war. This triggers snowflakes like nothing you've ever seen in your life. You've seen how much they absolutely hate the image of my face and that particular slogan, conservatism is the new counterculture. This T-shirt is not only a conversation starter, it will trigger the holy hell out of leftists. It will make me incredibly happy. It's available right now. Get yours at InfoWarsStore.com.
The New York Times ran the headline, Central Americans scared of what's happening in U.S. staying put. This has been a popular talking point of the left, aimed at demonizing President Trump's strong border policy. But think about the paradigm here, implying that somehow it is a bad thing that people aren't rushing to our country in droves because it's not easy to get in and reside here illegally anymore. The same people implying this also stress the hardship of poor people, specifically citing healthcare. Well, then how is more people here that are in need going to help that problem? So the Democrats complain all day about how we don't have enough welfare for Americans, yet they want to take more people in here that need welfare. But really all President Trump is doing is enforcing border security and law. But since when is it just free for anyone to come here? Since when is America supposed to have open doors for anyone? I don't see anyone from North America rushing to get into Central America. You know why? Because you couldn't, and it's better here. This all equates to one thing. More Democrats loot.
Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Visit InfoWarsLife.com to secure cure your canister. We have worked for years with our chemists and scientists to create the most powerful and affordable, great-tasting multivitamin formula available. Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix at InfoWarsLife.com is loaded with a full month's supply of essential vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that your body absolutely needs. In the history of InfoWars Life, we've brought out a lot of amazing products like Survival Shield X2, Super Male Vitality, and so many others. With its unique delivery system and proprietary manufacturing process designed for maximized effects, this formula is the platinum standard of multivitamin mineral products. And this part is most important. The ingredients in Vitamin Mineral Fusion are either plant-derived or of the highest quality lab standard. That means it's clean. That means it's pure. And rest assured, you're fighting the tip of the spear in the info war. That's InfoWarsLife.com and Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Take action now before we sell out. And support the info war while you support healthy gums and teeth.
Found it. The front lines of the human awakening. It's the InfoWar. And now, Alex Jones.
There must be some kind of way out of here. Say the joker to the thief.
Maria Bartoloma, the lovely and intelligent host of Fox Business, a few days ago had John Podesta on, who Hillary and his brother and the rest of them have been knee-deep with the Russians, secret meetings with Putin, uranium deals. I mean, it's just crazy. And then claiming Trump has all these non-existent ties. And Podesta now isn't just blaming me for being a Russian agent. They have congressional hearings saying this. They won't call me before them. Now they say I'm advising the Russians. Hillary says that they don't understand America, but they get it from InfoWars, and then it comes back to the U.S. via WikiLeaks, and then Jones picks it up again. So I wrote all those emails committing all these crimes and fixing debates and commanding the media. And no, I didn't do any of that. I mean, I mainly just sit here and read mainline news, government documents, you name it. Read the work of Robert Perry and his great journalists at Consortium News. But here's a short clip of that. I guess this was on Monday. Here it is.
Keep saying that they gave me stock, but they didn't.
Widely reported information here, John. Well, there's also Hillary Clinton, obviously.
Maybe you're looking at widely reported information from InfoWars.
No, I'm not.
But it is not
No, this is Politico. This is the New York Times. This is the Wall Street Journal.
No, it's
That's
not.
what I'm looking at, John.
No, it's not.
Then there's Hillary Clinton. Then there's Hillary Clinton, of course, we know, who got $100 million from Russian companies after she allowed that Russian company to acquire 20% of the U.S.'s uranium. So the point I'm making here, John, is that there's much deeper ties to Russia on the Democratic side than there are on the Republican side. And
this is a 15-minute clip where he just says, Hillary didn't do it, I didn't get money. And it's all on federal records of stock and bonds and cash deals. And then they've picked InfoWars to strawman and say that we said all these things we didn't say, just across the board, as now the new logo of fake news. But even CNN itself says they don't want to go there. Stop using that term. So I think hoisted on their own petard, falling into their own trap is what's happened here. I want to ask Robert Perry of ConsortiumNews.com, an award-winning journalist formerly with PBS, Frontline, Associated Press, Newsweek, Bloomberg News, you name it. As we see an exodus of real journalists setting up their own operations, you did it back when I did in 1995, but all these others piling on now. How do you see the media landscape, in the future, basically filling out? Or what do you think is going to happen with this, also the Russian narrative, and so much more?
Well, it's really hard to say. There is still tremendous power in the mainstream media. They still have the largest companies, most people. And I'm not, and I really don't like to be a critic of these news organizations. I came out of the mainstream media. Obviously, I had differences with some editors over how they were not pursuing important stories that I wanted to pursue. But I also don't like the idea of tearing down the media. But one has to say that what we're seeing is a strange arrogance, almost an out of control arrogance, where propaganda has become the way becomes the language that is used now by not not just the New York Times, but by the Washington Post and many others.
But don't they get the arrogance and the megalomania and the doubling down is making people hate them even more?
Well, I think that's also politically a danger that the Democrats have encountered in trying to overturn this last election by aligning themselves with the New York Times and the Washington Post. They don't seem to realize that many Americans don't like the elite media. That there's a lot of hostility. You can look at all the polls who show that Americans think very poorly.
Between 6 to 18% trust rate in what AP studies and others.
Right. So I think to sort of count on the New York Times and the Washington Post to reverse the outcome of an election, and obviously Hillary Clinton got more popular votes, but under our system, which was set up in the Constitution, Trump won. He won fair and square. Now, to try to pretend that wasn't the case and to pretend something else. Interestingly, when Podesta was on CNN the other day talking to Wolf Blitzer, he was asked about how did you possibly lose to this guy, Trump? Podesta answered sort of honestly. I was a little surprised. I was expecting to hear Russia, Russia again. And he said, people were just really desperate for change. And they decided they would go in that direction, even though they had doubts about Trump.
So does that signify that they're starting to figure out? Because I saw several articles where they're trying to get rid of Pelosi. The Democrats are now starting to admit that, okay, we've got an image problem. I mean, I think they're starting to maybe figure out this isn't working. As far as the Democrats are, as far as, I mean, like you said, with the media, they have gone into a new crazed level of just foaming at the mouth and calling for violence against Trump and Trump supporters. And then somebody makes a meme of somebody, Trump knocking down CNN, and they flip out like it's the end of the world and start bullying the person that produced it.
Well, I think certainly President Trump can show more decorum as how he deals with the public and the media and all the rest of it. But that's a different issue. The point is that the mainstream media has gotten deeper into this idea that it can dictate what's real and what's not real. And I would say that if they had a great record of doing that and being accurate, maybe you could justify it. But their record has been pretty abysmal, going back, let's say, to the WMD fiasco in Iraq that got lots of people killed and turned out to be dead wrong. And there was almost no accountability inside the mainstream media. There weren't a lot of firings. People who took the position of no question about WMD ended up either keeping their jobs or even getting promoted. So we've seen this problem where the mainstream media doesn't even function the way it used to. Back even when I was early in...
Sure, could you even call it media? Because it seems like whoever is the most lapdoggish, whoever follows the talking points, because I've experienced this being attacked sometimes by thousands of publications a day, usually only 20 or 30, sometimes 100, on a bigger day. But I mean, I've been attacked in 5,000, 10,000 articles in one day, and I'll spend hours looking at them. They're all cut and paste in major newspapers and on major TV networks of the same original talking points that David Brock puts out. And they only do it when he does it. When he puts it out, then it sees the Democratic Party, and then worldwide, not just here, Germany, Australia, the UK, Canada, they all take it and then just rewrite it only slightly. Whereas if I was an English teacher or a journalist teacher, say in college or high school, and I got back the papers from 30 students and they're all the same person, I'd say, who originally wrote this? I mean, it's that bad.
Well, plagiarism, isn't it? But I would say, here's the point I would make, Alex, is that sticking to facts is really important. Ascertaining them, doing the work necessary to figure out what's real, what's not real, and then building a better understanding of truth based on hard fact. That's what's been missing. And it's not just missing in the mainstream media. It's missing, of course, on the internet in many ways.
Sure, people build a consensus and then it just expands from there.
Right, but you have to build those things on foundations of hard fact, not on theory and not on speculation.
I agree.
And certainly not on propaganda. But on, as best you can do it, and it's not a perfect process, but as best you can, figure out what's true, what's real, what's factual, and then build your stories and everything from that. But what we've seen, and we're now seeing it across the board, I think the New York Times likes to pretend that it's standing for truth, sure. It's the great defender. The Washington Post has this slogan, democracy dies in darkness. The arrogance of some of this.
The only folks believing it are them. So let me say this in closing. I hope they'll come back and kind of school us on journalism, because I've never claimed to be a pure journalist. I've been a pundit, a guy that makes films, analysis. I mean, I mainly just sit there and report on other news and give my take on it. But I've learned what you're saying, not just mainstream media. I've been caught up in what they're caught up in, hysteria, where the internet builds a story, finds the evidence they want, and then we basically get bullied into just covering what they're saying, even in other alternative publications, but then I get it hung around my neck that I created it. So now I've got to be, I guess, a lot more careful, because now we are so big. It's teaching me that we're not under the radar anymore, and the media will then misrepresent what I reported on, what somebody else reported on. So I'm definitely experiencing, just to protect myself, not just to tell the truth, which I've always tried to do, but just to really protect myself, I've got to be absolutely specific when I'm talking about what somebody else said, because even when I'm doing that, they'll twist it.
Well, we all have to be careful. That's a basic rule of journalism. Be careful. Don't trust anything. Check it out. I'm afraid that too many times now, the New York Times and the Washington Post get their briefings at some usually off the record, maybe on background at the State Department or the White House, and they just go with that. And instead of showing the kind of skepticism, the kind of toughness that I thought journalism was about, they go with the flow. And that's a danger for the mainstream.
What about this? I've got some White House sources.
Those on the internet have to operate with greater care, because there is this impression that the internet is full of false news and sloppy. And at consortiumnews.com, we've tried really hard over those 20-some years to maintain a very close relationship with facts, with presenting our evidence, laying it out as best we can to our readers.
Well, you're doing a great job, Robert Perry. Thank you so much for joining us, consortiumnews.com. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Great guest, Nico got on, because I've read his stuff for years, and I was like, oh, yeah, wow, that's a great guest to have on, because he was one of the first people to start saying, can we see some proof? But I tell you, mainstream media has just intensified their lying. They've intensified their attempts to destroy anybody who they see as competition. And in that process, they've only made InfoWars bigger. Look at Mika Brzezinski and Joseph Scarborough, old Psycho Joe. They've gone from one of the lowest rating demographics on cable. We're talking 200,000, 300,000 viewers an hour, to 1 million viewers plus an hour since Trump tweeted that she was bleeding from her facelift and that she was begging to meet with him, which is true. So they ought to be thanking Trump, but no, they're not. MSM itself has its ratings back up. Nothing like it was a long time ago, but they're back up because Trump has brought interest back to things. It's simply amazing. Now, continuing here, I want to segue into a massive amount of other news I haven't gotten to yet that's so important, but I thought it was really key to just go back and review the fact that all that 17 agencies saying it's a total consensus is a complete 100% fabrication. You've got to ask yourself, where are they going to go from there? Now, imagine my job. I'm not complaining, but imagine my job. This is just what I'm looking at on the tops of my stacks. Gay orgy and cocaine at the Inquisition's headquarters at the Vatican. That broke. Last week, we broke it Monday here in the United States. We had the reporter on. And then what was in the Daily Mail today? Vatican police break up gay orgy at home of secretary of one of the Pope's Francis key advisors. This whole thing is coming down, ladies and gentlemen. It's inside the Vatican. Look at this headline. Here's what the 2018 Olympic gender regulations look like. If that was a regular talk show, I would spend a whole hour and take your calls on that subject alone. They're saying men can compete as women and women can compete as men. You know, if men just want to go dominate and get gold medals, but men are chivalrous, most of them aren't going to do that, but some will. There's already some men winning the racing, the weightlifting, you name it, and they just say, I am a woman. You look at these guys, you go, wow, you look like a really muscular dude. You look like a really manly man. You You look like a Uberman. You don't just look like a man, bro. Doesn't matter. They identify. People go, oh, you're hateful. Okay, well, I identify as an astronaut. I identify as a billionaire. I identify as a blind person. The government will pour bleach in your eyes in the UK and then give you money for the rest of your life to live as a blind person because you identify as a blind person. That's called mental illness. If you want to go pay to have your male genitals cut off, that's your business, bro. Don't make me pay for it as a taxpayer. This is psychological warfare. The ugly architecture, all of it is declassified to make you feel small and to destroy society and to target the family. You know, what produces the babies, what produces the wealth, what produces the fealty, the alliance, the society, the association, the civilization, the culture. I want to first hit, though, CNN rocked by a huge backlash after Blackmail's creator of Trump's CNN meme, but I'm going to stop right there. I cannot stress to you enough what's happened with the GMO food, the pesticides, the chemicals in our food and water, and what it's done to mutate and kill and displace the good bacteria and the limited amounts of yeast and fungus and garbage that's supposed to be in your guts. And good gut health is linked to mental health. Bad gut health is linked to cancer. It's linked to autism. It's linked to depression. Don't believe me? Just type in gut health linked to depression. Gut health linked to cancer. This is the super science. It's been known for 100 years. The elites are obsessed with it. But I did research at the top clinics here in Austin, servicing the elite. Austin's one of the richest cities in the world. And I looked at Zurich, Switzerland. I looked at Berlin, Germany. And I knew that they had at clinics not just probiotics, but probiotics that go in and knock out the bad yeast and fungus. And so I went to Grip a few years ago and I said, we basically copy one of these. He said, it's funny you say that. He's got a big clinic in Houston. He said, I'm actually developing. Well, he did it for us. It's Myco ZX. It's been sold out for almost 6 months. It's back. Supports normal fungal and yeast balance in your gut. Proprietary blend of herbs and enzymes. Made with high quality ingredients. Read about it for yourself. Read about the reviews. You're insane if you don't buy a bottle. Because even if you don't have this yeast problem that most people reportedly do, you're supporting the broadcast, but you probably do, and it's only going to help with gut health. And then you do it a few times a year. Or you do it, as maintenance every few days. Biome Defense is the very best probiotic we can come out with the widest spectrum of strains. It's kept refrigerated here until we ship it to you. It's a great probiotic. It goes with the Myco ZX is back in stock, 30% off. And you're saying, why would you do that if you've been sold out? Because I want to incentivize you to get it, to get the great response, to then sign up for auto ship every month, every 6 months, every year. You can sign up, cancel any time to get an additional 10% off. I want your business. I want you to go, wow, Jones really told me the truth. I got a buddy who works here in the military for 20 years, and they feed him all that really horrible GMO, and he just had guts that were shut down. Irritable bowel, you name it, ruined his life. I said, listen, take this. Within a month, no problem. It's all gone. Now, I'm not saying it'll help you in every case, because a lot of this stuff's so advanced, and once you get autoimmune problems in your gut, I mean, I've helped friends of mine, go get parts of their guts removed, because, it gets so serious. And I'm not here, saying that we've got a panacea. You should consult your physician, but they call it quack. Let's skip this one break. It's too important. Sorry for the late notice on that. They call it quacky. They call it kooky. They call it nuts. In a bunch of publications on Monday, they said, look, Gwyneth Paltrow sells supplements and so does Jones. They're both kooks. Now, obviously, I'm not responding to this because they're criticizing me. I don't care. I'm responding to educate folks on how whacked out they are. I'm talking 10 publications or more I saw, big ones. And they showed as proof of my kookiness a bag of coffee that we buy for like $8 a pound, the very best organic, concentrated, high quality, grown in the mountains of Chiapas, Mexico. It's like Guatemalan coffee, but better. Totally organic. Everybody loves it. It's strong. 2 different varieties. And it's one of our best sellers now because we only mark it up 35%. Nobody does that with coffee. And so people are figuring out, wait, this really hot Mexican coffee that's so hot now that I've been selling for 6 years because I liked it. I got it from the local distributors that get it directly from the Choppers folks who hand pick it on their own little farms. People are like, the average price of this is $25 to $30. Alex sells it for $17.95. Yes, this is the product we make the least amount of money on, because I just wanted to have a great coffee and be competitive. I think I'm going to raise prices, though. It should be at least like $22. I mean, we're just undercutting everybody. Once folks try this and figure out this is the hottest coffee out there, one of the hottest coffees out there. But that's just what I do. And I just find it crazy. The thing they pick to demonize is organic, volcanic-grown mountain coffee. Because Guatemalan's great, too, but it's over the mountain, and it's kind of been overdone. They've used a lot of pesticides. It's big plantations. This is really organic, hand-grown. It's wildcraft is the term they use. But it's all certified and the rest of it. I mean, imagine, first thing you ask yourself is, why has the Washington Post come out and attacked us? A bunch saying, I sell quack supplements. The Washington Post is owned by the biggest supplement seller in the world. Go look it up. Bloomberg Financial Reports. Whole Foods and Amazon, the same company now, they're the biggest seller in the world. Next is GNC. I mean, we're not even in the top 100. But see, we're evil. I sell the same coffee that's sold in Whole Foods for $7 to $10 less from the exact same co-op in Chiapas. So I'm evil selling something for $17.95 that's $25 or more. It's even bagged in the same bag. See, coffee's quacky now. See, I made jokes that they make fun of me selling toothpaste. They go, oh my gosh, it's fluoride-free. He's insane. Yeah, with colloidal silver and all the rest of it. It shows the mindset of these people. So Myco ZX is back. We got free shipping in the month of July. I've extended it. We've got 30% off on Brain Pores Plus, the nootropic. Super Male Vitality, 30% off. Survival Shield, actually 30% off. Z-Shield, 30% off. DNA Force just got back in after being sold out for 5, 6 months or 4 months, whatever it is. That's back, discounted 20%. It's all there. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. And when I say it's an act of resistance to get these products, it really is. I mean, you're funding an organization that is seen as the most disruptive anti-globalist group in the world. And we're disrupting things to empower the people. We're disrupting the globalists. You know, all the Chiapas rebels that have fought off the corrupt Mexican government, the only help they could get were communists. Now they're not communists anymore, most of them, because they're making so much money off coffee. That's how I attack communists, is give them money. Like that. Yeah, exactly. Prosperity. We got articles about Venezuela. Blood splattered on walls as members of parliament injured as rioters stormed Venezuela parliament. You know what? I can't do justice to North Korea. I can't do justice to the Olympics where men are going to take over. The Olympics basically, if men adopt this, if men take advantage of this, the Olympics will only be male, except for shooting. Women, statistically, if they're trained, can be just as good as men shooters, sometimes better. But that's it. I mean, it'll be all male. I think it's awesome. I think it's hilarious. Let the mental illness just flow. So I'm being sarcastic. And we'll get into CNN rocked by huge backlash after it blackmails creator of Trump's CNN meme. They committed a crime here, according to state and federal law. We're going to get to some of those clips. But we're going to take your calls in the next hour, smattered in with these reports. I'd like to hear from first-time callers today with good phones. I'd love to hear with folks with good, clear phones, and love to hear what you think about the North Korea situation. This is certainly escalating, but maybe it's not a crisis. I certainly think it is. They're going to start in about an hour, the big UN emergency meeting over this, with North Korea threatening to nuke everybody and has an ICBM sound. Pretty serious. We can talk about this report as well. DNA discovery reveals genetic history of ancient Egyptians. I'll tell you about that coming up at the start of the next hour. It's actually what the ancient Greeks said. It's what Plato said. Plato said that it was people from Central Europe, or from the coastline there, basically some of the same tribes that came down and created the Roman culture and some of those other cultures. They've done the DNA testing on a bunch of the most ancient mummies, and they were They were Central and Southern Europeans. But it's not some bashing the Africans. I just always hear that civilization, was stolen from Africans. You have to say the Chinese probably had the oldest civilization. They're not Africans. But you could argue that the humans originally originated in Africa, though now they've got some research that's not showing it. But it's not an attack on anybody. It's just what the DNA tests are showing. And what 2,400 years ago, the first global historian, Plato said. Plato also said we should have a world government and kill all the poor people. He's kind of the model of the globalists today. Wasn't a very nice guy, but the father of what you'd call philosophy. He was also a historian. He said there was a base in the Atlantic Ocean that had flying machines, and he said they created such an energy source so powerful that it blew up their entire island and made the earth dark for several years and made the temperature get cold. I actually have read Plato's writings on that. How would he come up with that? How would Plato come up with that? And he also said that it was people from the north of Greece that founded it. And some of the same tribes that founded Greece, he said, founded Egypt. Of course, we know early on the first trade was between Greece and Egypt. Of course, that was always known. The Romans taught that. But see, in the modern culture, people just said, no, that's not true. Africans founded Egypt. And it is true, by the middle period of Egypt, they had brought in folks from all over the Middle East and there and intermarried, and that it was true. They'd intermarried with kings of Ethiopia and other areas and had actually then no longer been European. That is true, but Egypt was started by Europeans. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, in 70 seconds. Please stay with us.
Today.
We're selling a product, DNA Force, that is the very best nutraceutical that we can produce. Dr. Grip, you took years for you to develop DNA Force for us.
It's been something that I've been working on for a long time, Alex, because I think it's very, very important. What the aging process is when the cell replicates, we lose a little bit of our telomeres. Telomeres are the little cups on the end of our chromosomes.
And when it runs out, you start dying.
We chose the PQQ because it has over 175 different clinical trials. It's one of the most effective substances in the world. It works like an antioxidant. It works to repair nerve growth factor.
So this is a formula to deliver the maximum amount. It's in powder form.
We have so many 5-star reviews. I take this. This is the product that I take.
InfoWarsLife.com, and the profit we make, we fight the globals. We fight the New World Order. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
Leading a frontal assault on the lies of the New World Order, it's Alex Jones. From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Coming up, your phone calls throughout the hour. You agree, you disagree, any of the subjects I covered. I just want you to be a first-time caller with an Ayatollah, a rock and roller connection. Or maybe it's the GCN box. It's just the phone system may need to be revamped. It's just been more and more scratchy, more and more. I'm not mad at GCN, but our phone system's digital and better. I may just start taking all calls here. 800, and Scott's doing a wonderful job up there. I don't want to put them down. It's just something's going on. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231 is the toll-free number to join us. 800-259-9231. Okay. Let me hit on this first because I just mentioned it. And then I'm going to go to break, come back in the next long segment, take calls. And then I'm going to get into CNN caught bullying and committing crimes to get people to recant their political views or they'll expose them on television. True bullying by its very nature. Coercion violates a New York law where CNN engaged in the activity. Also federal law. But I don't always go at CNN. I don't go with Wikipedia. I actually go to where they say the research came from, and then you go research if that's true or not. Because CNN won't lie about a car wreck or a police shooting or a plane wreck or the weather. It'll just be on certain political things. People say, well, if CNN's fake news, why are you reporting it? Because CNN then proves themselves in this article and links to reports that have previously already been proven and is actually well-known science. DNA discovery reveals genetic history of ancient Egyptians. Mummy genome data have been extracted for the first time. That's because they've removed the head of antiquities who was there for 30-something years in Egypt, who wouldn't let anybody DNA test it. Remember that guy? Mummy genome data have been extracted for the first time. The mummy's closer ancient relatives were found in the Near East and Europe. Modern Egyptians have developed a greater amount of sub-Saharan DNA. Ancient Egyptians and their modern counterparts share less in common than you might think. That is, at least genetically, a team of scientists have found. Researchers at the University of, how do you pronounce that, Tübingen, and the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History in Jena, both in Germany, have decoded the genome of ancient Egyptians for the first time with unexpected results. Really, it's just everything Plato said, everything the Egyptians said, everything the Greeks said. And the thing is, everything Plato said is turning out true. Publishing its findings in Nature Communications, the study concluded that preserved remains found at Abusir el-Malik, Middle Egypt, were closest genetic relatives of the Neolithic and Bronze Age populations from the Near East and Eastern Mediterranean Europeans. Modern Egyptians, by comparison, share much more DNA with sub-Saharan populations. So it was a mix of Asians and Europeans, just like you have with the Arabs and then the Babylonians up into what is ancient Iraq and then into ancient Iran. We're not getting into racist things here. This is just where the terms come from in anthropology, sociology, and archaeology. Iran means Aryan. And all that means is the Aryan people out of Europe that also founded India today. And yes, it was racist, folks. There was an upper caste of whites in India until just a few hundred years ago that ruled it. It's the same deal, same thing with Egypt. Modern Egyptians, by comparison, share much more DNA with sub-Saharan populations. The findings have turned years of theory on its head, causing Ethiopians and epidemiologists to reevaluate their region's history while unlocking new tools for scientists working in the field. Cleopatra was real, folks. And so was Mark Antony, and he was married to her, and he was a Roman, and the Roman historians said she had beautiful light brown skin. And many of the history said she had green eyes. She was obviously a mixed lady. It doesn't matter. The point is, modern history says Mark Antony married a black lady, which wasn't true. An African. It's how they try to destroy history, but the DNA then proves history was right. We'll be right back.
President Trump's tweets have sent the Democrats into a tizzy again. After President Trump ripped Psycho Joe and No IQ Mika last week, Trump got back on Twitter yesterday and posted a short video of himself beating up another man depicted as a CNN logo, a total classic. But the Democrats didn't appreciate Trump's animosity towards the fake news network CNN and are now drumming up the bill for impeachment based on the 25th Amendment, citing grounds that the president is mentally unfit to serve. Now, this would require a medical examination, which may come back to bite the Democrats that are calling for it. You see, given a fair examination of the president's health, Trump will pass with flying colors. But imagine if the tables were turned and Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Maxine Waters, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders were asked to pass the same test, given the importance of their jobs. I wonder if they would still be pushing this bill. Something tells me they wouldn't be. For Infowars.com, this is Owen Schroyer.
I'm going to lay it out short and sweet. I got so dedicated to fighting the globalists and their program for world government that I stopped working out. I was a total fitness nut 20 years ago. About 15 years ago, I just stopped working out. I gained close to 100 pounds. I have lost 50, 60 pounds of fat or more. I've gained 20 pounds of muscle. I'm stronger than I was when I was 22. When I could bench press close to 400 pounds and squat 600. It's actually scary. And it's because I take products that our researchers developed that block the estrogen mimickers that basically feminize men. We've produced these products with top scientists and researchers like Dr. Group to help you counter the globalist onslaught, and at the same time support InfoWars and our fight to promote human liberty and freedom. I am very proud to announce the introduction of the highest quality InfoWars Biome Defense Probiotic. We wanted to come out with the largest spectrum of high-quality, known probiotics that have been proven to improve overall digestion and health and detoxification in the body. Biome Defense is an exclusive blend of 50 billion live and active cultures from over 23 different probiotic strains that are known to support digestion and intestinal function. Our researchers are confident that we have been able to develop what will be the leading probiotic on the market. Secure your Biome Defense in ultra strength or regular strength at InfoWarsLife.com today and get started supporting your digestive system naturally. We've been testing this formula for years, but this is the limited first run to the public, so please take advantage of it today. Support your own health and support the InfoWar.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Came in last night at 10:30. That baby of mine wouldn't let me in, so move it on over. Move it on over. Move it on over. Move it on over. Move over, little dog, cause the big dog's moving in. She's changed the lock on our front door. My door.
Obviously, President Trump has taken some video and put a CNN Mike logo on who he's beating up on. Can I just get your reaction to that?
He's wrestling with us. Look at this video from his Twitter account this morning. See that the CNN logo has been superimposed onto the other fighter's face. Now, this showed up on a Reddit message board days ago. Now it's showing up on the President of the United States' own Twitter feed.
The media is outraged at Donald Trump for encouraging violence with this tweet.
I can't believe you can defend this. I mean, really, is there no... So my question is there no line? Like, if that had been a picture, not of the CNN logo, or video, not of the CNN logo, but it had been Jake Tapper's head he was punching, would that cross a line for you?
This is juvenile. Ridiculous.
What if it was a picture of Donald Trump holding a bloodied CNN logo up? When does it cross the line?
I think that is unacceptable. I think that is the President of the United States taking things way too far. It is an incitement to violence. He is going to get somebody killed in the media.
They have taken things way too far, and the media has gotten people shot and people killed and people beat over the head. They're the ones all running around wanting to have a war. Somebody on Reddit put out a joke video of a fake fight. You're acting like it's the end of the world, and you blackmail the person into going along with a retraction saying they're sorry, it's racist. So that you can then try to demonize the president and cover up the fact he's trying to have a recovery in this country. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take your calls throughout this hour and then into the end of the hour. And I'm going to get into the Russia, China, North Korea situation in detail, the collapse of the third world and where all that's going, and a big stack of Islamicist news that is just over the top. More cops are getting shot in the back of the head and killed, all part of the globalist operation for the summer we knew was coming. It's all part of the destabilization, intimidation, bullying operation these thugs are running. And then they sit there and act all upset and have feigned anger at how dare the president tweeting a joke video of him kicking a fictional bobblehead CNN logo's butt. And it's the Streisand effect. They tried to intimidate everybody. They tried to say, stop it. Now the internet is awash in these. And while we're taking some calls here for TV viewers, I'll play without audio some of those memes, both still memes and also graphic memes, detailing how CNN is trying to stomp on the head of everybody's free speech. But the answer to attempts to bully everybody into submission is to counter it. And I would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, we're about a 7 with people breaking their conditioning and actually responding to attempts to silence and muzzle and stifle speech, but just intensifying. I mean, there have been so many memes people have done of me getting beaten up or, you know, me getting my head chopped off, and I've always just made a big joke out of it. I mean, quite frankly, when you're getting made fun of, that's a good thing. I mean, look at CNN's ratings are back up. But now the memes are just absolutely, completely legion. Oh, I love that, the famous one of Muhammad Ali. I think he was fighting, was it George Foreman? And then and they just miss him over and over again. But I like CNN's recommendation. How about we actually put some real people's heads on these? Why don't we put George Soros' head on some of this? I mean, we're not wanting real violence. We're saying it's a joke. I mean, it's the Islamicists that the globalists are bringing into our country that actually kill us. But you know, you say that's okay. Well, then what about us just making jokes? I mean, now CNN's heads, CNN logos are being put on the heads of ISIS people as they chop folks' heads off. Oh, CNN is terrorists. That meme's really taken off, hasn't it? That was the brainchild of Mike Cernovich. We have the contest going. We've had 7 or 8 people get paid out on it. Most folks aren't getting on live TV. They're just getting on the internet, so it doesn't really win the prize, but it's had a huge effect. The meme's going. You're victorious. I want to pay out the other $180,000. We're not rolling in cash, but that's money well spent, $1,000 and $2,500 prizes. Again, contest at Infowars.com. Send in your videos. If you haven't been paid up yet, you think you should be, send your video in again. We had a couple guys working on it part-time. That's why I don't do a lot of contests, because they're usually very successful. This one already is, but then it's the digesting it and deciding if somebody wins and then watching it. But it isn't as successful as the Bill Clinton's a rapist deal, because Bill Clinton and Hillary were out in the campaign trail 2 or 3 times a day. Folks were really destroyed them. It became a national news story. This has still been successful, but in the background, why suddenly is CNN getting called terrorists? Why are they getting called ISIS? Well, Jake Tapper and others say it's Infowars. And that's right. I'm not even about the credit. I'm just about the meme taking place in the information war. I mean, here it is in the Associated Press today and in RT. We've been reporting this for years. Been hammering it the last few weeks. Fish and Wildlife came out and said we're right. It's 84% of smallmouth bass are female or male or totally deformed. They can't have babies. And now feminized fish, human contraceptives, and water supply causing males to grow eggs. And it's causing fish numbers to plummet. Now, if it's doing this to fish, imagine what it's doing to you, because most of your tap water is downstream, and the government filtration systems are not cutting it out. If you're not drinking heavily filtered water, you are insane in the membrane. Number 1 for my research cancer cause out there is not even cigarettes or alcohol, folks. It is the poison tap water. And I never read that or heard that when I was a kid. I remember 2-a-days, I'd drink tap water and I'd feel sick from it. But if I got good bottled water or took purified water from home, my mom had a water cooler. She believed in that even back when I was a kid. She got water out of Arkansas. I would feel great. And I just learned that. I learned if I swallowed a little bit of toothpaste by accident because I was big into brushing my teeth with fluoride, I'd feel sick. My dad is a dentist. He didn't even believe fluoride was bad until about 10 years ago when I said, Dad, read the medical literature out of Canada. This is the top dentist up there that got them fluoridated 20 years ago, now 30 years ago. It's not calcium fluoride, Dad, that we have to live, a small amount of it that does make teeth stronger. It's hydrofluorosilicic acid, electrified, and it's a byproduct of aluminum smelting, nuclear weapons production, and Chinese plants as well. And they just dump it, and phosphate mines. They just dump all this toxic waste in the water, calling it fluoride. My dad did the research and goes, you're absolutely right, son, I can't believe this. How would the American Dental Association be part of this? As other dentists woke up, about 7 years ago, about 3 years after my dad woke up, it was about 12 years ago he woke up, time flies. You look it up, the American Dental Association said, stop using fluoride toothpaste for children. It causes dental fluorosis and has been linked to bone cancer. See? What are they going to do when the facts come for them? Bad boys, what you going to do when the information comes for you? So let's go to your phone calls right now, and then we'll go through all this news ahead of the amazing Paul Joseph Watson. Other than Donald Trump or Donald Trump Jr., I mean, there's no libertarian conservative as big as Watson when it comes to social media. He's king. Average video, over 1 million views with them even trying to block him on one platform. Multiple platforms, several million. He was getting 30, 40 million views a few months ago until they started blocking it. He gets more Twitter impressions than all of the BBC's platforms combined. and they're trying to suppress him. But despite that, to see him busting through like, the Schlitz malt liquor bull through the wall, I mean, it is just awesome. So he's coming up. Let me see. Daredevil, Lisa, Charles, Noreen, Kyran. My eyes are not, this be 2020. I can't even hardly, I got to get that screen closer. Karen, Noreen, everybody, we're going to go to you. Noreen is watching us in Michigan over Facebook live feed. Remember, when you're watching us on a live feed on Facebook, YouTube, prisonplanet.tv, Infowars.com/show, spread that link. It's not work, it's war, it's winning. I know you're spreading the links by hand to get around their bots and their blockers. Please keep doing it. Whether it's by email or by person, by mouth, whatever. Noreen, thank you for calling from the great state of Michigan. It's starting to see a little bit of a revival. Noreen, thanks for calling. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet, go ahead.
Thank you for everything that you've been through with all the threats and everything that you've got. You stick to it, and you get happy you do that, because no one else really does that. And I used to watch CNN all the time until I figured out they were fake. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, Noreen, listen, Limbaugh used to tell folks, just say kudos. I want you to thank me. I love the audience. I'm humbled by you. You have to understand something. I understand the globalists want austerity and enslavement. So like a man in the water trying to get out who's drowning, I'm just instinctive here. Let me tell you something. I want to thank you for making the broadcast possible. And I want to explain something to you. You are the resistance. You're the reason people are waking up. You're the reason people are taking action. All of you out there. So just understand that. It's a pleasure to have this child molester run Vatican attack me. It's a pleasure to have evil CNN lie about me. It's an honor. Even though it's painful for my family, they understand it. I don't overall enjoy it personally sometimes, but it's got to be done. So thank you for the support. Go ahead.
You're welcome. Yeah, I really appreciate it all, because it's really amazing. I also got your product. I got Brain Force. That really helped me. It made me feel really smart, actually. I really liked that. I got the class. My dad got that in his room. I got the shirt, the